Hello, everyone, and welcome back. A hearty welcome back to a new episode of your favorite JavaScript news podcast, The Console Log.
I am so excited to be back. It's been, what, a whole month, Harry?
It's been almost a month and a half. Apologies for that, but thank you for sticking around. There's a lot of things that happened in that time that we were off. I enjoyed the rest of my paternity leave. Having a baby is the hardest thing I've ever deployed to production. Matthew and I both went to React Rally in August, which is I can't believe it's been or is that September?
Yeah, there was a great
I
recap
don't know.
video of that. I think we talked about that on the podcast, so that's not news
Oh,
to our listeners.
that's fine.
Yeah,
Apologies there.
and I shipped an internal conference for my day job, which was
That's
a
incredible.
blast and was one of the hardest things I've ever deployed. So that was cool.
Just adding our difficulties everywhere we can.
Yeah, we're just like, you know what? Like, we know how to write code. Let's just do things out of our comfort zone. And then, exciting note for me, I will be attending React Next in Tel Aviv. I will be speaking about functional programming, and you can come find me and say hi. Also, I need to figure out how to internationalize my talk because it's filled with Taylor Swift jokes, and I don't think those are going to be as funny there as they are in the States.
That will just ask an internationalization expert, and I'm sure they'll have you covered. Also, I want to say early warning. I'm operating on very few hours of sleep. Babies are almost as bad as being on call for a system. So I woke up to a babbling baby this morning. So if I miss words, it's because of that. But this is episode 52 of the Console Log. This is from the past week and then some. We've included some things more than the past week because we have some catching up to do with our good friends, the JavaScript and front end community. So it's from released October 24th from the past week, October 17th, and I guess we'll just start the show, right?
Yeah, we have some. Let's have some speed updates. Harry, you do one, I'll do one. Let's just go back and forth. Let's not even talk. Except one more.
I have some of these things I'm more excited about that I actually want to talk about more.
Okay, well, I don't know. You do it. You start.
All right. We're gonna do. Well, you have the first one because I don't know. There's no reference here.
Oh, okay. Well, so State of JS, which is I believe it's stateofjs.org. I lost the link, but anyway, every year they do a state of JavaScript, and they finished collecting their survey while we were on break, and we're excited for the results. There's nothing else to say.
Oh, that's it. Good. Okay. Because we're doing this in order, we want this to do in a sorted order. And the best thing about having things be in a sorted order is if it's stable. Little known fact, array.sort in Chrome prior to last month was not stable. Running a couple of times, you get different results, which made for so many lovely bugs, as I'm sure you've experienced over the years. Well, faithful listeners and viewers, if you're listening to this on YouTube, array.sort is now stable, like a barn. It is stable in Chrome 70 and V8 7.0. So Chrome 70 is out, right? Chrome 70 is out, is it? What am I running?
What version of Chrome am I running? I am running Chrome
70.
Oh, I need to update my Chrome. Cool.
Okay, I'm on Chrome 70. My sort is stable. Matthew's is not. But sort is stable. Chrome 70 V8 7.0.
But you know what browser I would be up to date on if I had the right operating system? That would be Edge, which is apparently implementing web components. So that's cool to see.
Woohoo!
Except I don't use Windows because I don't like it. But hey, good for Edge.
I mean, the two things in the web components, web components is an umbrella for many things. The two things that they're implementing is custom elements and the shadow DOM. And those, I think, are two of the most foundational parts of the web components suite.
Cool.
So the fact that Edge is doing that means that maybe someday there'll be a cross-platform framework called the platform that will let you use the web.
Let's keep these lightning updates flowing. And on that note,
boom, lightning.
Yeah, Flow, the typed JavaScript dialect, is introducing exact objects by default. So if you do not provide the syntax to say that, hey, this object could have more keys, it will start freaking out and break at compile time and then yell at you. And that's really all we have to say.
Well, I'm also surprised. This is a big change. Like they're literally changing the default behavior for an object type in Flow. They're going to do it incrementally, but like that's yes. To be fair, Flow's 0.57 point whatever, but like the it's not Semver stable, but it's community stable. Or at least I'd hope. So that's a pretty big change. But whatever. I'm personally more in the TypeScript camp, so don't send too much flame mail towards me. Moving along, our favorite React scaffolding app, Create React app, is now 2.0, baby! Yeah! 2.0, 2.0. What does that get us with
I
2.0?
have no idea. I think TypeScript support was merged in, but that's not a 2.0 feature. That's just
That's a 2.1 feature.
yeah, 2.1 because it's been a whole
2.1,
month.
2.1. But Create React App 2.0 has a whole plethora, one of my favorite words to say, plethora of things added to it. It's using Babel 7. It's using CSS modules out of the box support, Webpack 4, just 23. I'm bringing the changelog for you right now. That's my new M&M wrap, which I know is Matthew's favorite
Sweet, and I
wrap
think those are
mentality.
all of our lightning updates. So the reason why we did those so rapid fire is because we have like a month's worth of backlog because Harry and I are still reading the news, and we were like, hey, let's just power through it. So that's the story. Yeah, so we've kind of grouped this week's podcast. I was about to call it a blog. This week's episode into sections, and this new section is the low level web. Harry, you want to kick it off with about WebAssembly?
Get low, get low, get low. Get low level web. That's the trend. That's the new theme song for this section of the
They
podcast.
played that at my middle school dance.
Did they really?
Yeah,
And you were like, JavaScript has low level APIs. Look at me go and look at me
the amazing
thrive.
thing is that I was writing JavaScript in middle school, but I was the exception to the rule.
So a new API is being implemented, I think, just in Chrome called the Web Locks API. And if you've ever done server-side development with Java or other lovely server-side applications, you know that there is ability to obtain a lock when two separate processes are trying to mutate the same thing. And they're bringing this concept to the web such that the use case that they're outlining for this is if you have two large JavaScript applications in two separate tabs that are both interacting with an API, also mutating state locally, you don't want there to be any conflict in data. So what you can do is obtain a lock in the client from one tab, do your modifications, and then if the second tab is wanting to also make those modifications, and in doing so also trying to obtain that lock, it'll be rejected and thus not have a conflict there.
I'm really excited about this one just because the web is getting these really low level primitives that have existed in other places for years, and we're gonna see a point where web applications eventually become as fast as native applications, and that has a lot to do with WebAssembly and WASM and even things like threading and properly locking on threads. Like I can't wait for the first JavaScript app to have a deadlock. Like that's gonna be a real thing.
Utex obtained, is that what it's called,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Like when they ask me ridiculous computer science interview questions, they're going to be relevant because they're going to be threads in JavaScript.
And like in isolation, these changes don't seem like much, but when you look at them in aggregate, they definitely look to a future that is definitely with a huge appetite.
And that has
So
a lot to
this is
do
another.
with the next article we wanted to talk about, which is that calls between JavaScript and WebAssembly are finally fast, which is a great article published by the Mozilla Foundation. Anyway, calls between JavaScript and WebAssembly are finally fast. So this was published by Lynn Clark at Mozilla. If you haven't seen her articles before, she always includes really cool cartoons, and just it's a great way to understand what's going on. And she talks about the different ways that JavaScript and WebAssembly have to talk to each other and how they made it much faster than it used to be. My favorite is the Interpreter Kingdom and Jitland and Wasmania, all of which are islands that look like they're probably part of the UK but aren't quite. In fact, I am willing to bet that she based that off the UK. But yeah, Harry, what do you think?
I mean, this is another step towards making WASM acceptable compiled to target, and also one that can be incrementally adopted in existing JavaScript applications. The reason why this is important is before this, if you had a part of your code base that was in WASM and it was talking to parts of your code base that was in JavaScript, that was a slow part of your application. It actually was a part of your application that you would try to stay away from because it was such a speed hit. The fact that these are now sometimes faster or not even noticeable means that you can seamlessly migrate a existing large JavaScript application to use some awesome code and not have to worry about it at all. So exciting, definitely.
I'm pumped. And after that, do you want to get going?
We can get hubbing.
Get hubbing.
Was that what you're looking for? Yeah, you said get going. I'm get hubbing. GitHub had their, I think it's their annual conference, GitHub Universe, where they it's somewhat rightfully declare themselves as the center of the open source universe. No, they don't say that, but I'll say that for them.
Oh,
And there was
that would
two
be
new,
pretty like that'd be a big ego. Like it's not that they're
yeah,
wrong. It's just they shouldn't say that.
yeah. Some things are best left unsaid, like the fact that I'm tired. Although that's fine to say. So two awesome new features were released. One was at GitHub Universe, but the one that I'm also excited about, which is almost a small thing but still a very impactful one, is the ability to add PR suggestions in your GitHub PR reviews. And what this means is that previously, if you had some piece of code that you actually wanted to directly apply in a PR, you could suggest it in terms of just a comment. And then that person that was maintaining the PR would then have to then say, okay, cool, I agree, go into the code editor, apply it. And it was this whole process that was unnecessarily cumbersome. With GitHub PR suggestions, that is now inline into the actual PR, where you can say, this is an actual line of code that I'm suggesting you can apply. And then in the PR itself, you can say, I agree, accept, and then GitHub will directly commit that for you. So it's just a nice little workflow improvement.
So I'm both excited and a little nervous about this feature. I'm really interested to see how it shakes out. Just because like it's code review is such an important part of mentorship with junior engineers, and getting them to get into the habit of typing out things correctly like sometimes is really important. So I hope that people use but don't abuse this tool. Like when you're teaching someone who needs to learn, like let them go learn the thing themselves. Don't write code for them. But when you've got two people who know what you're doing and you're just leaving nits on their code and you're bike shedding, just like, yeah, accept. Just like save everyone
Yep.
time.
Another tool in the toolbox that, with great power comes great responsibility, and a third idiom that I don't really know what to say.
Just ask Spider-Man, he'll tell you.
He'll say use the web.
I just found out there's a subreddit for, I think it's called Raimi memes, for people who are obsessed with the original Spider-Man trilogy.
Weird.
Yeah, and like it's like they're like, this is the canonical Spider-Man trilogy.
Because that third Spider-Man legit gave me the heebie-jeebies. when he's like on his like ego trip and he's like, I am the shit. That's GitHub Universe. No, I'm kidding.
Dude, emo Spider-Man, he was the best.
Oh, and the worst. Speaking of action movies that make me uncomfortable,
Continue.
you love those. Come on, you gotta appreciate that one.
That was great. Okay, just do it.
Okay, so at GitHub Universe, they released a new feature called GitHub Actions. If you've used Workflowy on the iPhone or even Automator on the Mac OS, it's similar to that in the sense that there's a nice GUI in GitHub. It's in beta right now. You can apply to be part of the public beta. They're doing it very incrementally to make sure they get feedback, make sure they're doing things right. But you can say that once this PR is merged, kick off these series of actions. So you can say, make this Docker image, then upload it to NPM, like all these things that you can kind of just automate your entire workflow based upon actions in GitHub. I haven't really dived into it too deeply. It'll be interesting to see how open source projects use it, because I think that'll have the most effect there, because I know that big companies already have these things in place, or they just have a person in place to do that themselves. But definitely this is definitely the marquee thing that they released, and I'll be curious to see how it's used going forward. I'm a little hesitant because I didn't see an immediate personal need for that, but I might not be the target audience, but it'll be interesting to see how it develops.
Yeah, I don't really have a hub for those actions.
Woof. 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 Ding, ding, ding. Woof. Speaking of the next topic, I have no segue for that one.
Merger.
Sure, emerging actions.
Merging actions, sure. Merging into a PR.
You want to take it away?
Sure. So the Node.js Foundation and the JS Foundation announced an intent to merge, a message from the boards, and an FAQ around the announcement. I'm
That
sorry.
was
My phone fell.
what happened.
My phone fell and I freaked out.
Okay, well, hopefully the Node and JavaScript communities are not freaking out about this, but essentially, I think this is a lot of pomp and circumstance because it has to do with foundations, and that is by default pomp and circumstance. But historically, there was a Node.js foundation and there was a JS foundation. They had different focuses, different things they worked on, and they're announced the intent to merge, such that there will be one JS foundation to rule them all. Which I think it's very obvious in many respects to try to work on JavaScript in the front end in the vacuum of the back end and with Node is ill advised in many respects because they do have a direct effect to each other. They each inform direction. They each have ways which to shape the other ones. So I think this is just a formalization of existing community ideas and assumptions, anyways.
Hopefully, this is more successful than the time they tried to merge underscore and Lodash.
Oh, yeah. That wasn't really. Those are just like two maintainers that were trying to agree on things. This is like foundations, processes, and boards, and rooms, and surfboards, and
Boogie boards.
yep, boogie, boogie, boogie. So let's switch gears and talk about some tooling because I love tools. They are my favorite tools to tool with. Code Sandbox is one of my favorite online repos, code environments. Essentially, it's your editor online with your whole environment, like web. It's like Webpack with your editor and like a browser. But there was something that didn't exist before in Code Sandbox. It had its own. It's had its own editor, which was it was good. It was great. But what was released this past week was the creator of Code Sandbox was able to actually directly embed VS Code, the entire editor of VS Code, into the web. That is both a testament to the architecture of the VS Code team and also to the ingenuity of the maintainer of Code Sandbox. I tried it out. It is wild. Like, that is talking about WebAssembly making things better. If they can leverage some of those features in Code Sandbox with VS Code, you won't ever have to download VS Code again. It's just literally you hit Command P or Command Shift P to do the command palette, and it just works. It's everything as you expect, and it's there. You make a whole application in there without ever leaving your browser. Like, that's the dog food eating the dog.
I'm excited for the first proof of concept where you have a website serving itself.
I mean, I feel like
it's.
that's been done. I don't know what that means, but I feel like
I
it's
mean, I
been
guess it's
done.
itty
That seems like
bitty. I guess itty bitty was that.
yeah,
But
yeah. I mean, they also have there's Code Sandbox. There's also the one from people at Fog Bugs. I always forget the name of it. I always forget the name
yeah,
of
but
it.
like, how great would it be if there was if like you had a service online and then you just had a tab like submit a pull request and it just like had VS Code available and you just hit save and it submitted a PR for you.
God, it's just one step closer to us not having jobs. No, I'm kidding. Oh boy. All right. Well, talking of things getting better and things always improving, we are going to the section of the console log called version
It's
upgrades.
true. Everyone incremented.
Everyone got older, including me. I had my birthday in the past month. I got older in one day. One day I got older.
It's true. But one day you were one age, the next day you were another, and I didn't know what to believe.
Just like these tools, or these libraries, they were a version one day, then they were a new version the next day. Just like how birthdays work with everybody. It's all the same.
Happy birthday, Angular.
Uh, yes, Happy Angular version 7 was released. That's 7. Angular. I don't follow Angular as much as I should. What's nice about Angular, if you ever use it, is that it has very much kitchen sink, batteries included point of view. And with this new Angular 7 release, it had some new components built in. One of them, which I think is really cool, is a virtual scroller, there's an implementation of that in React called React Virtualize, which is similar to how iOS tables work as well. So if you like scroll on iOS a lot of like cells, it'll recycle the cells so that things are snappy. That's now built into Angular 7's kitchen sink of components that you can draw from, which is great. It means that you can get an application up and running without much impediment to you.
Yeah, I
X.
have no thoughts on Angular, so I don't have anything to say. So Styled Components is releasing version 4, and I love the title of this link. It is Styled Components V4 new final finalist for a real final PSD, because that is how we version things, or that is at least how they version things. As a quick primer on what they release, it is smaller and much faster. They refresh their Create Global Style API, replacing the old Inject Global. They're supporting an as prop, which is an alternative to with component, and a few other things. Harry, is there anything you're excited about?
I am personally in the emotion camp in terms of CSS and JS libraries. Um, I love competition because it feeds functionality and features to each one of them. So I think this is definitely style components responding to many of the benefits that uh, emotion has in terms of being smaller and having a little bit more ability to be dynamic. So seeing these, I mean, eventually things converge. If they're a good idea, they converge. So great, good. I'm
I
happy.
am extremely biased in the reason I prefer Emotion. I've worked with neither library, but Kai from Emotion has bought me a drink, and I haven't heard anything from the maintainers of Styled Components. So one
Just you
one
wait.
party's bought me a
Oh,
drink
just you
before,
wait.
one party hasn't. If you guys want to buy me a drink, it'll be even, and we'll figure it out. I don't even know your names.
Moving on, we have Meteor 1.8 was released. Their headline for the title was Meteor 1.8 erases the debt of
No, depth
1.7.
depth is what happens when a real meteor crashes, Harry. This is a software meteor.
The big thing about Meteor 1.7, to go back a version, is that they introduced this really awesome, in many ways groundbreaking way of compiling your JavaScript assets such that Meteor 1.7 compiled a version of your JavaScript in two ways. One, for legacy browsers, which is what everybody does nowadays, and then two, targeting just modern browsers. And it has code in the HTML page to do the modern bundle by default, but fall back to the legacy bundle if you need to. And a problem with the Meteor 1.7 is that because it was bundling two things, it was two times as slow. Now, Meteor 1.8 fixes that, and instead of doing both up at once, it'll actually do the modern build up front. And once that's done, when there's actually an idle moment in the Meteor bundler, it'll then bundle the legacy bundle itself, so that you don't have to really worry about having any performance hits in your development lifecycle. So that's a big thing in Meteor 1.8. The engineer that's being working on Meteor 1.8, Ben Newman, he's a powerhouse, just always cranking things out. There's a lot of other updates in Meteor 1.8. They upgraded Mongo 4.0, which is great for myself and my company that I work at. Disclaimer, I work at Mongo. What else was in there that I was really excited about? Definitely improvements to how you can process which files you want Meteor Bundle to use. So essentially adding some functionality that Webpack has into Meteor itself. But Babel 7, good update. I don't use Meteor, but it's definitely getting them more towards in parity with a modern stack. So good.
Speaking of Webpack, Sean Larkin tweeted that they have shipped uh, Webpack 5.0.0 alpha, so it is ready for extreme alpha testing, I believe.
So I tested this tweet. It's actually not on the GitHub releases or npm. I think Sean Lochran's the king of hype, so kudos to him. But I think you can actually just download the Git thing and then like npm link it in. Like you could test it, but it's not actually published. This tweet though itself was exciting. This is a feature that's been oft requested. It is where does it say it? It is persistent caching to Webpack. And what that means is that when you bundle with Webpack, it loads up all your files into memory. So it knows what they are, the dependency, all those things. As soon as you kill Webpack nowadays, all that work is gone. It forgets all of it. It's gone. This PR that Sean's hyping, hype man, great hype man, will now cache that work to disks such that the subsequent time that you spin up Webpack, you won't have to incur that cost again. Meaning that doing fresh Webpack startups will now be immensely faster because it's actually able to shortcut and jump to just the end result. So that's a huge feature that I'm waiting for a while. There's been plugins that do that for a while, but having it built into Webpack itself is most exciting for myself.
I am looking forward to it as well. Although the next thing we're supposed to talk about, Harry, is by far the thing I am most excited about as a New Yorker and
Oh yeah,
as a fan of food. Apple has fixed the bagel emoji. And you might have already been aware. I was aware because these are the things that are important to me. Apple was the only company who makes an emoji that didn't have any type of schmear on the bagel. It's very important that the bagel is not plain. The bagel must have something on it. Who eats a bagel by itself, really? Like,
you are so passionate
have
about this.
you
I
ever
love
eaten a
it.
bagel without something on it? It's just like it's not right. It's just it's not how you eat a bagel. So anyway, Apple has now put cream cheese on the bagel. Maybe it's a tofu spread. I don't care. It is some type of white spread on the bagel, and it makes
No, you
everything
had it right.
better.
It's a schmear.
It's well, it's a
It's a
schmear. It's a
schmear.
schmear, of course. We're New
You gotta
Yorkers.
have a schmear.
Yeah, it
Now,
don't ever ask a
now
New
they need to have like
Yorker
a.
where. What'd you say?
I was gonna say they should add a modifier, so you could add salmon afterwards, then it just becomes
You
lox.
know that would just be my go-to emoji because I love a bagel lox and cream cheese. As
That would my life would be complete. Like, I mean, having a son is great, but like an emoji with bagels, cream cheese, and lox, get out of
I mean,
here.
I don't have a child, so that's like all I could ask for in this world is a bagel lox and cream cheese emoji.
I mean, it's like having a food baby, so it's the same thing.
That's how we feel. Before we get into this longer but very exciting section, I'm going to share a story with our listeners. I emailed a friend that I hadn't talked to in a while, and he mentioned that he was listening to our podcast, and these are his words, not mine. It tickled him pink to hear my voice on this podcast. I don't know whether or not he would appreciate a first name shout out, so I won't, but you know who you are because you're the only person in the world who would use the phrase tickled me pink.
Like salmon.
Yeah, like salmon.
You tickled him like salmon.
Exactly.
You said fish, 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 salmon, 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 salmon.
Yeah.
Oh man, this next section, there's so much React.
Oh my God, there's so much to react to. What are you thinking?
Oh my, I don't even know. This is exhausting. Let's skip the first one and go to the ones after that. I just can't. Well, the first thing I want to talk about is React. If you're listening to this, it's React Conf this week. They've been teasing a big announcement for a long time. We'll find out what it is soon enough, or maybe if you're listening to this after the fact, or you know what the surprise is, let us know what it is when you do. But leading up to this announcement, they've been doing a flurry of public activity, one of which is documenting a new way to access context on a class. So when they move to the new context API, they use a render props pattern with producer and consumer, and that's fine. There's some ergonomic issues with this, such that they're going to actually not really revert to the previous method, but allow you to also have a style such that you can access context off of this.context in a class. There's a link to the documentation link about that. I think it's going to be a lot easier to use in a class component. You don't have to nest everything in a render component, so that'll be nice.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I am not a big fan of Dragon Ball Z style programming, and when I say that, I mean Kamehameha style programming.
Oh goodness. The next one, you want me to talk about, or do you want to talk about?
You do it.
React's adding a new lifecycle hook called get derived state from error. This is going to, in some ways, replace most of the functionality that you currently use with component did catch. Component did catch is kind of overloaded in terms of functionality. This get derived state from error is where you'll put logic to handle UI changes when a subcomponent throws an error, and then component did catch will be mostly used for side effects with logging issues to your action tracker. So just a further refinement of the React class API.
Very cool. I am really excited about writing fewer React classes. I am excited about writing more functional components. And that is something that Dan Abramov just tweeted an RFC about, which is now called React.memo, which I actually like better as opposed to React.pure, which was its original name. So for some context, pure components are a type of component, which is traditionally a class component that does not re-render if its props haven't changed. And that's actually a little confusing because a pure function would always returns the same thing, but it's not necessarily memoized. So now they have this function called React.memo, which can wrap a functional stateless component and effectively turn it into one of these pure components or a memoized function, and it just returns the same thing if the props don't change, which I'm really happy about because I'm always trying to convince developers to separate their presentation layer from their kind of business logic. And when you make a class component, it is harder to enforce that. So now we have a functional stateless component that is as performant as a pure component theoretically is. I'm also really excited about this next one, React.lazy, which allows for lazy loading of components in general. And what's really cool is you might have seen the library loadable, which it's effectively that. It's just built in to React itself. So now the React team are just saying, hey, lazy loading is a thing. We're going to make this work first class. And it's going to play nicely with suspense and boundaries and just all the cool tools that we're getting or have already gotten. Or if you're running like, I don't know, React 16.8 that doesn't exist in production, good for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason why they made this a officially supported API is because this will affect concurrent rendering and suspense, and having that be owned by them because they have to own the entire render chain with React Suspense and React Concurrent is why. Like, I don't think this is a thing that's going to happen often, but this is definitely in their field of vision, so they want to make sure that it's supported.
Yeah, and on happy and sad news, we missed someone this week. I don't know. I guess Dan Abramov was in New York, and all week people were messaging me, was saying like, "Hey, are you gonna go meet Dan Abramov?" And I was like, "I don't know. He doesn't respond to my tweets." So
Yeah. Hopefully he'll come back and visit soon. We can check him out at meetups and get to shake the hand that reduxed. Okay. And then I think that is your catch up of an immense amount of news. Hopefully your head is not spinning and you are firmly stable with your 2 feet on the ground.
oh, you said stable. That leads us into my next pun. This is my dad joke section. So I actually got this from somewhere on Twitter. I don't remember where. It's not mine, but I can't attribute it appropriately. But anyway, 100 years ago, everyone owned a horse and only the rich had cars. Today, everyone has cars and only the rich have horses. How the stables have turned.
It's a slow clap.
Yeah. We have one last note before we leave you. Taylor Swift has been encouraging people to vote on Instagram, and we agree with her that you should vote. So if you live in a country where voting is an option, please do that, especially if your election day is November 6th. I have already mailed my absentee ballot. Harry, what were you going to say?
I was gonna say you can't complain if you don't vote. I mean, you can still complain,
Yeah.
but I don't accept it. So vote if you have an opinion. Make it heard via your checking in those squares. Don't do it outside the squares. Don't do it outside the squares. Won't count. It won't count. So much pressure.
Oh my god, that was the most confusing form. I got an absentee ballot, and it was like the most confusing form I've ever received. And I was like, I can't mess this up. This
So
is
many
my
squares.
duty.
Oh my god, I need React. What's going
Why can't
on?
this just be declarative?
Awesome. So that concludes episode 52 of the Console Log. Hopefully you enjoyed our antics. Let us know. Tweet at me, which is HSWolf. Matthew is
Matthew Gerstmann.
great Twitter handle.
Yeah, have fun spelling my last name.
Oh yeah, with a GERSTMANO. Yeah,
There's no oh yeah, but the rest of that was right.
That's a jingle. And with that jingle, we bid you adieu, and we hope to hear us again next week.
We hope that we tickled you pink. Thank you for having me, Harry.
Goodbye, all you salmon lovers. Bye bye.